If you tend to zone out when the topic of healthy foods and healthy eating comes up, you're going to want to perk up for today's video, because I'm going to talk about a class of foods that is particularly healthy, especially for people who struggle with blood sugar problems, people who are diabetic. And that class of foods is fermented foods. I'm going to share with you 3 benefits of fermented foods, especially for blood sugar issues. I'm going to share with you some examples of fermented foods, and I'm going to share with you some warnings, some things to look out for when it comes to choosing the best types of fermented foods. So stay tuned for this video. You're gonna learn a lot. All right, before we get into it, I'm Dr. Amina, a physician and a health coach, and I help you get normal, stable blood sugar levels so that you can have great energy levels throughout the day, so that you can be free of food cravings, which helps with avoiding weight gain, especially as you grow older, and that so that you can just have a normal, overall healthier, longer life. All right, let's get into this video. Fermented foods. Now, fermented foods, they've been around for time immemorial. It was actually a way of preserving foods in ancient times when there was no refrigeration. Excuse me. But lately, they've kind of become popular. I see them more in the supermarkets, and for good reason, because there are several benefits to these fermented foods. One of the benefits of fermented foods is the fact that the process of fermentation, really, which is bacteria working on the food, the bacteria actually pre-digests some of the starch and sugars present in these foods. So things like sauerkraut, kimchi, essentially these are vegetables, but vegetables are starch, essentially starch with fiber. And the bacteria works on these vegetables, breaks down the starch, and so you're going to have less glucose, less sugar going into your system, because a lot of it was eaten up by the bacteria. And for this reason, fermented foods have a lower glycemic index, okay? Another benefit is that in that process of fermentation, the bacteria, they multiply, they grow, because they're getting food from the vegetable or from the milk or whatever it is that's being fermented, or even the fruit, and so the bacteria is able to multiply, and what you end up with is some good bacteria. So we have in our bodies, a balance of good bacteria and other germs, and in eating these fermented foods, you're getting more good bacteria that feed on real food, fruits, vegetables, right? Milk even. And these good bacteria coming into your body would essentially crowd out bad bacteria, the types of bacteria that cause disease, okay? Resistant bacteria, they're resistant to lots of antibiotics, and we can come into contact with these bacteria, from food, because a lot of antibiotics are used in agriculture. And then we sometimes get exposed if we visit someone in the hospital, or some of us who actually work in the hospital, we get exposed to some of these very bad types of bacteria, some of them that cause bad types of diarrhea. But if you're getting good bacteria, lots of it replenishing your normal microbiome, then it means that there's less space for the bad bacteria. You crowd them out, and this overall strengthens your body, strengthens your immune system. Good thing about taking in more or higher concentrations of good bacteria as well is that instead of craving bad foods, you're going to crave more of those healthy foods, because the healthy bacteria, the good ones, they want things like vegetables and fruits and real unprocessed foods. And in that way, you're going to crowd out bad bacteria, which cause you to crave bad things, junk food, lots of sugar, refined starches, right? And so that balance is in your favor in terms of the types of food that you're going to want and the types of foods that you are going to reject, right? Another good thing about fermented foods and the type of beneficial bacteria you get is that these beneficial bacteria, they actually make good chemicals. They make feel-good chemicals that help to enhance your mood. They make a lot of good chemicals, fatty acids that are anti-inflammatory. They help to kill inflammation in your body or cancel out inflammation in your body, right? So a whole host of benefits in terms of the good chemicals that these good bacteria make. In fact, they also too help your body make some of the vitamins like vitamin K, and help some of the minerals and so on in foods become more accessible to you. So lots of good benefits from these good bacteria. And then, the third benefit is kind of leaning towards the second one, is essentially, like I alluded to, where the good bacteria would allow the nutrients and minerals and vitamins present in the food that's been fermented. It'll allow those to be more available to you, even B vitamins, right? if you ferment cabbage, you're going to have better access to vitamin B12, right? And other B vitamins, and like I said, other minerals, zinc, magnesium. These things are more accessible to your body just because of what the bacteria did to the food that was fermented, okay? So those are some of the benefits, essentially lowering the starch and sugar that's going to come into your body, feeding your microbiome and giving you more good bacteria, and then increasing the availability of nutrients from the food. What are some examples of fermented foods? So I alluded to some fermented vegetables such as kimchi, a Korean food, but essentially that's fermented cabbage and carrots, and sometimes there's pepper in it, but you can get it mildly spicy, or you can get it more severely spicy if you can handle your pepper. There's sauerkraut, that's fermented cabbage. There is also fermented milk, which everybody knows about yogurt, but another form is kefir, right, which is fermented milk. It tends to be a little stronger than yogurt, a little more tart, and to me more alive, because you tend to see the bubbles in kefir, meaning that it's actively alive. There are active live bacteria in that food. And then there's fermented soybeans, which you'll get as tempeh, T-E-M-P-E-H, and there's miso as well. There's kombucha from fermented tea, and there tends to be some amount of fruit in it, and so you get that fermented tea. It's called kombucha. So those are some examples of fermented foods. Another thing that you might not necessarily think of as a fermented food because it might not taste like some of the others, but essentially sourdough bread. Essentially, instead of using the regular yeast, in this case there are cultures that are used as a starter, and in the process of that starter, that culture, some of that bacteria being multiplying and eating up some of the wheat, gas is produced, and that gas is what rises the bread. So sourdough bread is another thing that you're not going to get live bacteria from the bread because it's baked after all, so you're going to kill the bacteria, but there are other benefits from sourdough bread in terms of how the glycemic index is reduced, because the bacteria would have started working on the wheat, the starch, and also it would make some of the nutrients, minerals, and so on in the wheat more accessible to your body. So sourdough bread is another example of a fermented food, although you're not necessarily getting live bacteria, but you're reaping the benefits of the bacteria having worked on the yeast in terms of making that bread less harsh on your blood sugar levels, right? But what are some of the precautions when it comes to fermented food? So one of the big things, and as a doctor and taking care of vulnerable patients, one of the things I do, I'm an infectious disease specialist. I actually prescribe a lot of antibiotics, and because of that, I cause people to have very depleted microbiomes. I deplete their good bacteria, and I'm very aware of that. And so I find myself recommending fermented foods to my patients all the time. I used to recommend probiotic supplements, and some of you might be thinking, well, I can just eat a probiotic supplement. I don't have to eat the fermented food. But the thing about probiotic supplements is that it's unregulated, and so you don't know what you're getting. And in the grand scheme of things, we have trillions and trillions of bacteria and these germs in our gut. But if you're getting a probiotic supplement with, I don't know, 1 billion, that's nothing in the grand scheme of things. So it's really not making a difference in what is going in. Additionally, you're buying a probiotic, but there's no prebiotic, there's no food for the probiotic, there's no food for the bacteria to eat if you're taking a supplement, especially if you're just relying on the supplement and not eating any vegetables or anything to go with it to feed the bacteria or the probiotic, right? If you're eating a fermented food, then it's coming with fiber or food for the bacteria, so it's coming with prebiotics, so you don't have to worry about your probiotic dying because it has nothing to eat. It's not dying of starvation, right? So back to the precautions though, like I said, I recommend probiotic rich foods to my patients because they literally know they're getting probiotics compared to the supplement where they don't know. But with the probiotic food or the fermented food, you can smell the probiotics, right? They tend to have a high smell. There's that smell of fermentation, right? You know what I mean, or you can go and buy these things and you kind of see what I mean in terms of me saying that you can smell it, right? But because it's a live food, essentially for somebody who has a very weak immune system, such as somebody who has cancer, especially blood cancer, they're on chemotherapy, or even worse, they had a bone marrow transplant, they have no immune system. And so when it comes to somebody who has a very weak immune system, you have to be very, very cautious about eating these foods, because you are taking bacteria. And if your intestines, your gut lining is all inflamed, especially from chemotherapy, it means it's going to be very leaky, and it's going to be very easy for these probiotics, good bacteria, can get through into your bloodstream and really cause problems, cause literally infections, which I have actually seen before. So if you have a very weak immune system, or if you're in doubt in any way, definitely you're going to want to get permission from your doctor about whether or not you can eat these live foods, okay? So that's one caution when it comes to probiotic rich foods, all right? Another thing is that, you have to really make sure that you're having food, maybe it's yogurt, but maybe it doesn't have live culture. So maybe it's kefir or kefir, but it doesn't have live culture. So you have to look on the label and make sure it says live cultures. That is how you're going to know it's a fermented food. With kefir, in fact, if it's in a glass bottle, you can literally see bubbles moving along the side of the bottle. And again, that helps you to know that this is actually a live food and not just something that has, dead bacteria in it, right? Pickles, a lot of people wonder about pickles and whether or not that's a fermented food. And the thing is, most of the pickles that are available in supermarkets, they're actually just in vinegar. And even worse, a lot of times there's sugar added. And you look at the label and see maybe 8 grams of added sugar or even more per serving. So if it's pickles, just regular pickles, assume that it's not fermented unless it literally says that it was naturally fermented. Look on the bottle and you want to see that it was naturally fermented and that it has live cultures. And when you look at the label, you don't want to see added sugar on the list, okay? So look at that for sure. And also you want to make sure that, like I said, with kombucha and even kefir or kefir, that you see the bubbles. Now, one thing that I found out myself, I was so hurt when I found out this. So there's a kombucha that I have bought every now and then. And one time I bought it and I really studied the label in more detail. And lo and behold, I saw that it said carbon dioxide infused. So essentially they carbonated it just like how sodas are carbonated, or water, sparkling water is carbonated. So these bubbles were not the bubbles from the fermentation process, but essentially infused carbon dioxide. I was so hurt. I was like, I feel so tricked, right? So these are the things you have to watch out for. When it comes to buying these things, it might be fake, right? You're not getting what you think you're getting. So definitely look at labels. Like I said, I was tricked with that one. It was in very, very small print, right? So you want to make sure that it's not, if it's kombucha, it's not carbonated. And then if it's like pickles or kefir or yogurt, that it says live cultures. If it's like pickles, like I said, you want to say that it's naturally fermented. So these are some things you're going to look out for. So all in all, though, I think fermented foods are excellent. A little goes a long way. So when it comes to things like sauerkraut and kimchi, you might be bored with food and food choices and healthy choices, but you just need a little spoonful on the side as like a condiment. You can mix some with a salad and it can really enhance the taste of these foods, and at the same time you're getting great health benefits and nutritional benefits as well. If you all found this video helpful, definitely share it with somebody who you think will benefit from this, and go and try something fermented this weekend, and come back and tell me if you liked it. If you've already tried any of these fermented foods that I mentioned, let me know which one it was and whether or not you liked it, and if you were okay with that smell of fermentation. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.